The end of the Hungarian Grand Prix meant the start of the F1 summer break, a 3-week recess between the Hungarian and Belgian Grand Prix, which includes a 14-day mandatory factory shutdown for the teams. If you want to hear more about the summer break and why it exists, I highly recommend this excellent video by Ollie from TGS F1 in the card above. Now, the 2021 F1 season has seen a spectacular title fight in the front, alongside stiff competition between the teams and drivers in the respective championships. With this 3-week break, it is the perfect time to conduct this mid-season review of each team and driver on the grid. This is part 1 of our mid-season review, featuring the 3 teams sitting closer to the back of the pack: Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams. First up for this review, we have Haas. 2021 is the American team's 6th season in Formula 1, and unfortunately for the second straight year in their short history, Haas are back markers, which is a shame seeing that the team was fighting at the front of the midfield in 2018. However, the situation at Haas is slightly different and not down to a mistake in car development. Instead, it's a consequence of strategic decision making. Ahead of the season, Haas did not spend any of its development tokens, which meant that the launched VF21 was almost identical to the VF20, just with modifications made to the floor as per the regulations, alongside changes to the front wing, plus the headrest and fuel hatch, following Romain Grosjean's accident in Bahrain. With the team opting to focus its resources on the 2022 season with the new sweeping technical regulations, and it's easy to see why the team made the decision. For the 2020 season, Haas did not develop the VF20 at all due to uncertainty over the team's 2020 budget, and the rules of 2021 called for the 2020 cars to be carried over with modifications, which meant that Haas would effectively bring a car that was underdeveloped for a second straight season. Coupled with the VF20's sensitive nature, putting in funds to develop a car for a transition season simply didn't make any sense. That said, one thing to note is that unlike the VF20, the VF21 did receive an update, although these were actually late developments that were already planned ahead of the season. But anyway, let's look at the performance of the team this season in the 11 rounds so far. Results wise, 2021 is unquestionably the worst season the team has ever endured, with 0 points scored in 11 races alongside a best finish of 12th. Needless to say, these results look horrendous compared to the previous seasons, but these are to be expected given the decisions the team made earlier on. Personally, I would give the team a 5 out of 10 on the account that the results we are seeing are to be expected. The team has made the strategic choice to focus solely on 2022, and I certainly hope that the team's gamble pays off. And now, onto the drivers, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. These two rookies have had a rough start to life in Formula 1, with both drivers having crashed hard on several occasions. The latest incident has seen Schumacher crash hard in FP3 and fail to start qualifying in Hungary. And I think nobody could certainly forget about Mazepin spinning out on his Grand Prix debut and ending his race in the barrier within the first lap. The head-to-head comparison between the two drivers weighs heavily in favour of Schumacher, with Mazepin losing out in literally every aspect. Now that we've seen the head-to-head, I will look at each driver specifically, starting off with Mick Schumacher. I think he's done a pretty good job of the tools at his disposal, with the season highlight being either Q2 in France or his defense against Verstappen in Hungary. I do acknowledge that he has made several mistakes so far, especially with the crashes, but to his credit, he has managed to keep it relatively controlled and clean on Sunday, where it matters most, with 0 retirements so far. If he can eliminate his mistakes, I think he could definitely perform solidly in the midfield and ultimately in the upper echelons of the Formula 1 grid with Ferrari. So there's a 6 out of 10 effort from him for the first half of the 2021 season. As for Mazepin, he had a baptism of fire on his debut, spinning and crashing out within 3 turns in Bahrain. And for the first few races, his driving was simply subpar. But to his credit, he has improved since then, and the highlight for him is probably an overtake on his teammate at Silverstone. But it still must be said that Mazepin needs to work on his pace and racecraft, which is still suboptimal, especially compared to Mick. So I'll give him a 4.5 out of 10. With that, that's all we have for Haas here. Our overall rating is 5 out of 10 for the team, 6 out of 10 for Mick Schumacher, and 4.5 out of 10 for Mazepin. Up next, we have Alfa Romeo. 2021 is the Sauber team's 4th season running under the Alfa Romeo banner, and unfortunately the Swiss squad has once again failed to elevate itself into the midfield fight, and is sitting at the bottom 3 of the constructors, which is a huge disappointment because the team should be moving up the table and not staying stranded in the same place for 3 seasons straight. 2021 is especially disappointing, seeing that they have now slipped from 8 to 9, beaten by Williams, who have a weaker car, and it's something the team has actually previously acknowledged. I think Hungary is a strong lesson for the team to reflect upon for the rest of the season to get its act together. The team wasted a solid opportunity for points, and as a result fell behind the team it shouldn't be competing against to begin with. It must also be said that comparing the points tally from the first 11 rounds across the 6 most recent seasons does not paint a pretty picture regarding the team's 2021 efforts at all. In 2016, they scored 0 points, in 2017 they scored 5 points while using a 2016 spec power unit, in 2018 they scored 18 points, in 2019 they scored 26 points, in 2020 that dipped to just 5 points, with the team being hampered by the weak Ferrari power unit. For 2021, the team has only scored 3 points despite the largely improved Ferrari power unit. Due to this, I feel I just have to give the team a lowly 4 out of 10. If they want to keep their sponsorship from Alfa Romeo, they need to buck it up. especially now that the deal is on a single-year agreement, meaning that Alfa Romeo could easily choose to pull the plug at the end of the season if it wants to, which arguably puts more pressure on the team to perform, because I'm quite certain that on-track results could well become more of the factors in deciding if the deal is worth renewing for the Italian manufacturer. And now onto the drivers, Kimi Räikkönen and Antonio Giovinazzi. This year, things have been relatively even between the two, with Giovinazzi being stronger on Saturday, while Kimi has the edge on Sunday. Before I look at each driver specifically, I will say it is very difficult to judge both drivers. I think it's fair to say that Kimi has been on a decline for some time now, so whenever Giovinazzi beats Kimi, you have to ask yourself, what is the reason? Has Giovinazzi stepped it up? Or has he remained stagnant and is Kimi losing due to the decline? I will start off with Kimi. There isn't really much to talk about him. He's been beaten on Saturday, but has generally performed stronger on Sunday, which I said earlier, and it's pretty much the same case as 2020, although Kimi was closer on Saturdays then. So I'll just have to give him a 5 out of 10. As for Giovinazzi, I think he's been performing decently this year, but he needs to step it up and beat Kimi convincingly if he wants to get that seat, especially on race day where he tends to lose out to Kimi in general, so it's a 5 out of 10 effort for him as well. I will say that both drivers are at risk of losing their seats for next year. Alfa Romeo will have full control over its driver lineup for 2022, and there are quite a few candidates for both seats. They have also said that they are open to a full refresh of the driver lineup, which I do feel is a statement of intent to do so. But back to our ratings, these are our final ratings for the Alfa Romeo team and drivers, with 4 out of 10 for the team and 5 out of 10 for both drivers. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have Williams. 2021 marks the team's first full season without the Williams family at the helm, after the family sold to Dorton Capital in the middle of last year. It's fair to say that the season has been a success even before the events of the Hungarian Grand Prix. George Russell reached Q2 in every race weekend prior to that, and even made Q3 in Austria. It was certainly a far cry from the troubles of 2019, where the team failed to make Q2 entirely. Once you factor in the result at the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's fair to say that the team has made an incredible comeback since the disastrous 2019 season. At the Hungaroring, the team left the track with a double points finish, which wasn't just the first points for the team since the 2019 German Grand Prix, but also the first double points finish since the 2018 Italian Grand Prix. Like I've done with Haas and Alfa Romeo, I will take a glance at the results the team has produced from the first 11 rounds of the past 6 seasons, which tells the story of a hard fall and subsequently a brilliant comeback story. In 2016, the team scored 94 points, including a P3 with Bottas. In 2017, the team scored 41 points, including a P3 with Lance Stroll. In 2018, they scored 4 points, and for 2019, they just scored 1 point. In 2020, this dropped to 0 points despite a much improved car. And for 2021, they have scored 10 points from a double points finish at the Hungaroring. With that fantastic comeback story, William gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. And now onto the drivers, George Russell and Nicholas Latifi. It's mostly business as usual in this department, with Russell handily trouncing Latifi on both days. However, Latifi sits high in the standings courtesy of finishing ahead in the Hungarian Grand Prix. Now I'll look at each driver specifically, starting with George Russell. I think Russell has done a fantastic job so far this season, and he has shown why he is fully deserving of a seat at Mercedes. There's just so much to talk about here, from his impressive qualifying performances throughout the season to his race performances. We have his wet weather charge at Imola, where he almost overtook Valtteri Bottas, his battle in Austria with Alonso, and there's Hungary. He drove a very clean race to bring home points when there was an opportunity, and he showed he puts the team first. I personally was very impressed with what he said over the radio. That is the kind of teamwork and team spirit that wins championships, and it just shows how much he has matured as a driver. With that, I'll be giving Russell a solid 9 out of 10. I don't think he deserves any lower, considering his near flawless performances this year. As for Latifi, I think he's doing decently this year, but it's clear that he isn't anywhere as capable as Russell, based on his performances in qualifying, where he's never out-qualified Russell, and in the races. For the 2021 season, Hungary was the first time that Latifi had succeeded in beating Russell on the track. For that, I'll give him a 6.5 out of 10. At this point, before I end off, I will acknowledge that Latifi is a driver that we may not be seeing on the grid next year. Williams have said that they no longer need to sign paid drivers due to the improved financial situation, meaning that Latifi's seat could be in jeopardy for next year unless he can put out some better results over the next half of the season. With that, it's a wrap for Williams, 7.5 out of 10 for the team, 9 out of 10 for Russell, and 6.5 out of 10 for Latifi. Thank you for watching this video. Do tell me what you think of my opinions. Was I too generous or was I too harsh? If you like this video, do drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you for part 2.